Peace, fam. It's been a little while since I've done a story time video, so I wanted to get on here and I wanted to do a story time video with you guys. So I wanted to share an experience about what I believe to be a haunted house that I once lived in. So a few years back, my husband, he worked on a vegetable farm. And as a part of the vegetable farm, it comes with housing for him. And so he lived there for a little bit, and then eventually I moved in with him, and it was this big house. It's a really nice house, but it was huge. And one of the downsides of that is we had to share the space with other people that were working on the farm. And so even though my husband and I were one of the people who were always in the house all year because of the role that he played, there were other people that would come in and out every year that changed. So I think there's only like 4 of us that live there the whole time, all the time. So anyway, if you guys have watched one of my videos before, I talked about being an empath, and I talk a little bit about what that means. Usually it is the most prominent when I'm with people. So, I'll kind of get a sense for things. I can go more into that, but I don't want to get off track. But another part of the empath side of me is that I'm very sensitive, not just to people, but to certain places. So I have had multiple times in my life since I was a child where I will go into a place and I will kind of get a sense for it. What's going on? Is it good energy? Is there something that's a little bit off? Is it negative energy? So I've always had that since as long as I could remember. I just didn't talk about it a lot, and I didn't, have the labels for it then. So when I started living in this house, I noticed that the upstairs energy was very different from the downstairs energy. And the house on the whole was kind of creepy at times, but for the most part, it was fine. But I definitely noticed that the upstairs was very weird. Even the lighting in the upstairs felt different. Like it could be the same amount of brightness, but it just always felt dark. And I remember one of the things that always stood out to me is I personally never saw anything. It was always a feeling. I had some dreams while I was there, and I had strong feelings while I was there. Every time I would go into the upstairs space, and I would walk down the hallway, it would feel like somebody was following me. Like I literally could feel like somebody's presence with me when I was upstairs. It's so bizarre. Either I felt like they were walking behind me, or I felt like I was being watched. And you know what that feeling is like when you're being watched. You turn around and lo and behold, somebody is looking at you, And every time I turned around, I thought I was going to see somebody. Like that's how strong the feeling was. And so, that's how it started. And then it just felt getting like thicker. The best way I can describe the energy there was it would just get thicker and thicker and stronger in a negative way. And I remember I had prayed over the space a lot of times. And, but the thing is, I believe when you don't own a space, you have less authority. Personally, I believe that you only have so much control when you aren't the owner of the place, whether it's not necessarily a house, but like your apartment, If you don't have some type of like strong, stable roots in that place, I think it's very hard to kind of get the energy right at times. That's just my personal belief. And how I know that this place was weird, I'm going to share other stories of people that have lived there too. But my friend's dog, my friend lived on the first floor and we lived on the second floor. And her dog would go everywhere. Her dog would get into so much stuff. But her dog would freak out every time she came to the second floor. She would get to a certain doorway and she would start barking and running in circles and just acting weird, just kind of like frantic. And she would refuse, my friend's dog would refuse to go past a certain point and at the doorway of the second floor. She would never go past there. And if we would try to, coax her to go, she just wouldn't go. And that was like the first time for me that I noticed that like animals could also be sensitive to things that are going on, more than we give them credit for, because that dog was like the sweetest dog ever and like felt a little fearless. And it was just very strange. So I noticed that. Then things started to get a little bit more intense. And I remember feeling like, okay, I have to do something. I've prayed over this space, I've done what I can. I've mentioned it to people and, at first people didn't really say anything. So I said, okay, I'm going to go sage, I'm going to smudge the area, because in the past I'll smudge the area and usually I'll feel pretty good and things will be back to normal. Child, so I decided I was gonna smudge and I started from upstairs because that's where I lived at the time. And I think I did my room, then I did another room across the hall, okay? And this is an empty room, and this room had a door that would get stuck on the carpet. Like the tension on the carpet, it would just get stuck. It was just weird. I guess maybe one part of the door is uneven. And the reason why I'm telling you this is this door is very hard to open, and it's also very hard to close without extreme force. So I had the door open, and I wanted all the doors open while I was doing stuff. And this one particular room I had just finished, and I remember the door was open. None of the windows in the house was open because I think I had it controlled that only one window was open downstairs or something. By the time I started walking down the hallway, I heard this loud slam and I was so shook. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh, it's just the door. You know, immediately I was like, oh, the door slammed. So in my head, I'm thinking like, I started checking the windows because I was like, oh my gosh, you know, it must have been a cross breeze. My window was closed. The room across from it was closed. And what made it worse is, like I said, that door takes a lot of pressure to close. And so I felt like because I was like trying to clear that area, you know, whatever was there was really angry. And so I just kept doing it anyway. I just kept doing it. And what I noticed living in the space, this is the most stubborn space I've ever lived in. Like I would literally smudge the place, and within like, after praying over it and smudging it, it was almost like a couple week cycle. Like every couple weeks it would feel back to the very same place where it was just this thick negative energy, you know, the same thing, somebody's watching me, just real intense. And then finally I took it a step further and I decided to get some black tourmaline crystal. And I can go more into that, but I decided I was gonna like just put that all in the area, pray over the area again. And I would say that was probably like the one thing I did. I still had to periodically go through and cleanse, but it was a space that I felt like I could never change. Like I'm not used to praying over a space or smudging, and things keep coming back. It felt like whatever it was coming back. And looking back, I don't even know if it was like human spirits. I don't think it was one spirit, by the way. I think it was multiple spirits. And I felt like it probably wasn't human, because I feel like when you pray over a space, me personally, I feel like whenever I did that, I felt like whatever was going on, it would just resolve that. And this was like the most stubborn situation I ever dealt with in terms of living in a space that feels off energetically. And I started to like talk to other people in the house and people that used to live there. And some people shared really creepy stories in the house. Like my one friend said she woke up one night and felt like there was a figure in the far corner of her room, and she just felt like this feeling of dread. And she got scared and stopped telling the story. She couldn't tell the rest of it. And she doesn't even believe in stuff like that. This other woman who lived there said her fan came on in the middle of the night really, really loud, and it woke her up and she felt like she wasn't alone. And shortly after that, she moved out the house. Like, I don't know if something else happened, but I think she was shook and she left. She said she left for other reasons. Then the lady that used to be the manager there told me, she was like, oh yeah, that place is totally haunted. Like she told me she always felt the same thing. Like, you know, she never felt alone when she was in there, no matter like, you know, if she was the only person in the house. It was just crazy. Like she said she had very similar experiences. And then shortly after that, I had a dream about like this old man in the hallway. Like I was laying in my bed. It was almost felt like sleep paralysis, but so like I've learned how to get myself out of that. And so I saw this man and I'm like, I don't know who this man is. I don't know who he represents. And he was just like this old white man. And he was just looking at me through the door. Like it was so creepy. And so I don't know, but I've never had a dream about this person. I've never seen this person in my life. And it was just a very awful experience, and it did wear on me. But thankfully I was working, because I was working so much, and I was working like in the city at the time. So I was gone for hours. I only would notice it when I would come home at the end of the day or on the weekends. And I just wanted to spend less and less time there. It was just so sad. And finally we moved into our own apartment, and I never forget, moving to our own apartment, I kept thinking like, yep, I'm going to feel the same thing. I'm going to feel the same thing because that's how used to it I got. And guys, when I tell you, I never felt not one thing in my apartment. My apartment, even though we don't live there anymore, oh my gosh, like that's how I knew something was wrong with that house. I never felt that feeling, not one day in that apartment. And we lived there for almost 2 years, and it was so great. Never felt like I was watched. Never felt the negative vibes. Like just, it was just crazy. So I'm just curious about what happened in that house and what went on that led to that. So anyway, guys, that's my story, my haunted house story. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had any paranormal experiences that you guys are willing to share. I'd love to read them. I am very interested in those type of stories. Excuse me. And I will catch you in the next video. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. Shout out to you. Welcome to the family. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so you can get videos like this again in the future. Bye.